Imagine waking up in 1929, rubbing your eyes, feeling rich, sipping your coffee, and by dinner, completely broke. No war, no warning. Just a financial avalanche that wiped out $200 billion. That's not monopoly money. Real homes, real savings, real dreams. Welcome to Black Tuesday, the day Wall Street didn't just stumble, it fell off a cliff in slow motion. But before we dive into the chaos, let's rewind. To the roaring 20s, the decade when America partied so hard, even the stock market got dizzy. Picture 1922. World War I is over. Soldiers trade rifles for typewriters. Factories trade tanks for toasters, ice boxes, and radios that make your neighbors jealous. Henry Ford is basically a wizard. Cars that once took 12 hours to assemble now roll off the line in 90 minutes. Streets flood with Model Ts honking like a mechanical orchestra. Oil, steel, rubber, every linked industry booms. New York skyrockets. Literally. Skyscrapers like obsidian needles piercing the sky. Jazz music everywhere, from Harlem speakeasies to suburban rooftops. It's chaotic. It's loud. It's electric. Meanwhile, rural America is dancing to a different tune. Farmers' profits from wartime exports have evaporated. They borrow money to modernize, buying tractors that break faster than their morale. Urbanites invent a new hobby: buy now, pay later. Radios, finance it. Cars, finance it. Stocks, on margin. Banks cheer. Sure, you can buy $100 of stock with $10 down. What could go wrong? And the stock market? Wall Street turns into Disneyland for adults. Barbers give stock tips. Bellboys advise Vanderbilt heirs. Shoe shiners. Also financial gurus. Fun fact, one guy reportedly invested in a company that made hats for dogs. It doubled in a month. He quit his job as a dentist. Dog hats became the luxury item of the 20s. Between 1924 and 1929, the Dow Jones quadruples. Companies invent holding companies that own other holding companies. That own nothing. Just hype, layers of illusion, and people calling it genius. Few tried to warn the public. Economist Roger Babson said, "A crash is coming." Wall Street's response? Buy more stocks. Jazz bands played louder. Champagne fountains kept flowing. Cash rained like confetti at a wedding. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans joined the mania. Families invested their savings in companies making electric toothbrushes and neon signs for chickens. Yes, neon chicken signs. True story. Well, probably. Consumer debt balloons. Rural debt climbs. The economy is a house of cards and everyone's dancing on the table. October 29th, 1929. The stock market plunges. $14 billion vanishes overnight. Margin calls explode. Investors scramble. Bankers stare at spreadsheets like they're written in alien code. Banks, built on optimism and paper promises, collapse. Families panic. Grandparents' life savings? Gone. Aunt Margaret's inheritance? Gone. Little Timmy's piggy bank? Still there, but now he's the richest person in the household. And yet, newspapers print sunny headlines. Politicians assure the public, everything is fine, trust the system. Outside, people whisper, are we really fine? Or is the world on fire? Globally, the chaos spreads. Germany's fragile recovery collapses. Britain struggles. Trade falls by half in 3 years. The world is spinning, and nobody knows where the floor is. By 1931, America is gasping. Unemployment hits 25%. Bread lines stretch endlessly. Factories halt. Dust storms, black blizzards, bury farms, suffocate livestock, and coat homes in brown death. Families flee west into dilapidated cars, chasing rumors of work and land. Hoovervilles appear across the country, shantytowns of scrap, cardboard, and desperation. Amid the chaos, crime rises. But bank robbers like Bonnie and Clyde become folk heroes. People cheer them not because they're nice, but because they strike back at the institutions that betrayed everyone else. The nation isn't just broke, it's broken. Fathers whisper apologies they never thought they'd need to say. Mothers stare at empty tables. Children wonder if they'll ever see a sunny day again. Yet somehow, people endure. Not out of hope, not optimism, but sheer refusal to quit. March 1933. Franklin Delano Roosevelt stands at the podium. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Action is swift. The Civilian Conservation Corps sends young men into the forest to plant trees and build infrastructure. The Works Progress Administration hires millions to construct roads, bridges, schools, post offices. Even the arts get a paycheck. Painters, photographers, writers capturing the soul of a recovering nation. The Tennessee Valley Authority lights up towns. Factories hum. Cities glow with electricity. Social Security promises, "You matter. We'll remember you." Wall Street reforms. Follow. SEC FDIC rules to prevent another crash. Banks reopen, but this time people deposit money quietly, hopefully, not panicking. Slowly, unmistakably, life returns. Radios hum, swing music plays. Factories produce goods, not just gadgets. And though the Great Depression didn't end with confetti or champagne, it ended with work, dignity, and resilience. Yet beyond America, the world shifts. Another storm looms, bigger and darker, setting the stage for the next historical upheaval. But for now, America survives. Rebuilding piece by piece, jazz in the background, and hope in every heartbeat.